Welcome all to 10th office hours. This is members only office hours. And lately I've been giving them topics. And before it was really, let's just open the session and ask questions. And if we're done within half an hour, we're done within half an hour. But now I've given it some more structure. Want to run through this idea of building workflows, and today we'll do some building, like actually create some workflows within Bro, but I don't want to prescribe what you're going to build. So it's a little bit workshop style. I hope you're okay with that. So topic is building workflows in Bro, and you can think of basically anything. But the objective today is gain clarity about what makes a workflow and the steps involved to create one. It sounds so simple, but I've spoken to so many people who say, I just need a system. And then I'm like, what kind of system do you need? And we spent some time talking about it, but everyone's needs are so specific that I can show you what I do to inspire you, but in the end, you have to build the workflow that works for you. So I want to guide your thinking about what it is that you want to achieve. And let's get started with a definition. And I read this in an article about productivity systems, which in the end turned out not to be about technology, but about steps. And I replaced the words script for workflow. So in the original article, it talked about a script, and I thought, oh yeah, but a workflow is essentially a script. So I changed it because I already called it, let's build workflows. But a workflow is a list of tasks and pre-made decisions to be performed in a certain order and or under certain conditions or times to reach a wanted output. A little bit technical, but we'll see in a bit what that means. And a workflow is a way to store knowledge outside of our brain, make it consistent throughout time, and subject to analysis, validation, and improvement. And well, I've a Zettelkasten now, Slipbox, so I tend to take a highlight like this and then free write about it, trying to make sense about it. And I realized, thinking back to my previous jobs as a consultant, technical consultant in large corporations, that I did many things that I learned through just doing my job, but never writing them down. So when there was this one instance, I was in a hospital for over a week, and my colleagues couldn't run certain reports because there were so many steps that they had to take to fetch the data, clean up the data, publish the data, that we missed a few deadlines. And I thought, okay, I was the bottleneck, and if only I have written down the steps to do something. But I never bothered because I thought, why would I write down the steps? I can do this blind. But then I started to think a little bit more about why would you want to write down the steps? And that is not just so you can give it to other people, but just what it says here, to make a process consistent, and you can analyze it and you can validate it and you can improve it. And I think that is one of the most important reasons to actually write down your processes. So the things that you do that may or may not be unique to your role within the company. And then to take it a step further, streamline it in a way that you can do those workflows in Roam, or that Roam helps you to do those workflows. So it can range from a simple checklist to templates that you use to manage projects, create notes, fetch notes, all that kind of stuff.
Ramses?
So, yes.
So by workflow, do you basically mean an SOP? Are those interchangeable for you?
I would say they're interchangeable, yeah. With the important difference, I think, an SOP is often seen as a checklist, just a series of steps that you do. You can give that list to someone and then they do it. I think, and this is just semantics, I know, but with a workflow, I also think of how can I automate parts of it? So it's not just a standard operating procedure, it's also what parts can I save myself of doing. So I read a very interesting piece by Ned Eliason a while ago about the personal leverage loop. And he talks about the 4 steps of effective workflow design and management. So first you define the SOP or workflow, then you refine it, then you automate it, and whatever you automate, you delegate. So I personally see more the SOPs as like the last step. I cannot automate this, but I don't want to do it myself, and I will just outsource it. I know it's semantics, but maybe it helps to understand the difference I have in my head. So the ingredients to come to a workflow, I think, and please correct me if you see it differently. The ingredients that go into a workflow design are thinking first of the wanted outcome, visualize, so think back of previous time you've done it, this process, and then write down the steps, refine the steps, and then this is what I think really makes it a Roam workflow, is either use templates or smart blocks. So Roam templates can be used, for example, if you say, well, I just need a checklist, or I just need a template for a meeting or a project or an email. I'm right, just some boilerplates. It becomes more automated once you start to use smart blocks, but it depends on your needs. So let's define a workflow, and this is I will give you a few prompts, and I was thinking of first run through first walk through the prompts, and then actually take it a moment to write each individually our answer to the prompt. So trigger our thinking. So this is what I have in mind for today. The introduction, think about your role, think about your wanted outcome. What are the steps involved in the process, and then let's build. And depending on the overlap of the things we come up with, maybe we can do like the let's build together. If there's no real overlap, maybe you can do a little bit of a Q&A, or I can just show something specific. Any questions or comments or suggestions for the session? Not, I will just continue. And the first question I want you to think about is, what's your role? And I got these archetypes from the book, The E-Myth Revisited. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's a book about small businesses and how do you actually go from thinking as a technician, so just you doing the work. For example, you're a freelancer, or you're a programmer or a researcher. You do the thing that adds value to the business directly. So for example, you work with clients, and the work that you do, that's what clients pay for. And that goes all the top to entrepreneur. And the E-Myth really talks about leveraging systems. So how can you go from thinking of the work that you do to more of a strategic point of view? So, and I've written them in the wrong order, I realize now. So like the lowest level, you're a technician, you do work day to day. After that is the level of the manager. So a manager would, for for example, prescribe how to do things. And to look at it from an individual level, you can manage yourself by having a knowledge system, by having some templates, some automations, but you manage your inputs, your outputs, how you work in Roam. So that is the second level of maturity that I see, but it's also a role in itself. So a technician will take maybe more notes to be able to produce something, whereas a manager takes more notes to then be able to kick up that information one level above to their manager or the company C-level, which would be the entrepreneurs, people thinking about the vision. So if you're more of an entrepreneur and you don't execute directly, but you're more thinking big picture stuff, your workflow itself will also be different, because it's maybe more based around serendipitous ideas, brainstorming, again, meetings, maybe some financial stuff. So I want you to think about what your role is. So I'm just going to give you 2-3 minutes. What I'd like you to do is just open your Roam, your daily notes page, write down what's my role, and then think about, what do I do on a daily basis? What is the most important stuff in my day? I will give also the prompts as a little bit of homework. So if you want to take this further, there will be a little bit of homework if you want. So does anyone want to share first their role or how they see their role, and name something that you think, if you could turn that into a more structured workflow, what would that be? Just name one process or task or whatever.
Yeah, I could start. I'm a freelancer. Actually, I do have a company, but I'm sole employee. So actually, all of the levels fall into me. But I realized that I'm a computer consultant. So most of the time, I would say 95% of the time, I do on a technician level, where I'm really solving the problems, the tasks, whatever the projects, handling really the technical stuff. So so that's where I started also implementing my task system, my project system in Roam. So that this is the area of my workflows, handling tasks, keeping everything, logged into the day, at what time do I do what, and so that's where I started, structuring my daily template with a task and an agenda, and where I do have a page with weekly tasks, that I then look at every day and drop over to the daily task. I also have another page which is called recurring tasks, where I have monthly tasks and yeah, everything recurring, weekly and monthly tasks. So that was where I started before I went into Zettle and all the interesting other stuff. But that is where my business side is on, and yeah.
Okay, so you already have a few processes, but you do them manually, right?
Yeah, most of them manual. I mean, I do have a template for the daily layout, so task header and all this stuff, but the dragging and dropping of the task and also the recurring stuff is manually. So there aren't smart blocks involved in there.
So, but you do use some smart blocks, right?
I do have smart blocks, but not for those processes. No, not for these. No, okay. I do have them for journaling. I do them for journaling, but not for this task management. No.
Yeah, when I hear this, I immediately think of the workbench, but that's a little bit too much, I think, to
I know what you mean. I mean, yeah. That's why I got into Roam 42 is, to just shoot over tasks to another day. Exactly the same.
Or you fire off a command and it opens a specific page in the front, in the main window, and another page, for example, in the sidebar. So you immediately have your setup for you, but we can dive into that later.
Yeah, let's go.
Anyone else who likes to share their role and think a little bit out loud about what would be the highest leverage task or process if they could streamline it more?
So I can do it.
Perfect. So
Okay,
what role do you
my
see for
role.
yourself?
I have 3 roles, but I will leave one outside. So I'm a researcher at the university, and I also manage people, and I also teach. But teaching can be outside this. So I would like to concentrate on research. That's where I take most notes, right?
Okay.
On project ideas and reading papers and basically crunching information. And as a manager, what I do is I got everyone that I manage, particularly students, PhD students and master students, they have their own roam, they take their own notes, and then I manage their notes, basically. So I see what they, so I don't really, I don't think, for now, I'm not prepared to have a process for that. So I need to, what I have is, I have a smart block for the Daily Open. It's very useful. So it captures what I have in my Google Calendar so that I don't need to see 2 things. I just do the Daily Open and I have that bit over there, everything that is my calendar for the day. And then I have also some to-dos that were leftovers from other days, that are tasks that I didn't manage to end. And I use also another smart block for what I would call the process of paper capture, which is so the metadata. It's someone did it for us really nicely from Zotero, and then the populating the several fields. So basically I work on these, my daily work is based on these 2 smart blocks. What I'm looking for is trying to see if there are any new ideas or anything that I can incorporate also in these smart blocks.
Yeah. Do you also use the Zotero to Roam plugin? Have you heard of it?
The one?
There's a Zotero to Roam plugin.
Yes, I do.
Is that the one you use?
Yes.
Nice. Yeah, and
It's very good.
So you say, okay, I don't want to turn it into a process, you know, the reviewing of the notes of your PhD candidates. But
I could.
Yeah, I'm not the expert in that, but the first thing that pops up in my mind is Roam Book Club, because that is essentially where you can learn a lot from Bo, who facilitates Roam Book Club, because it starts out by, you know, just the ideas of knowledge management or writing notes based on the things that you read. So really deeply processing the ideas instead of just capturing highlights. And then what he does in like the final 2-3 weeks, he goes in to the graft and reads the entries by the people, and then he gives comments, but he has like a system that he uses to very quickly indicate if people should revisit their notes. And there are a few ways. So that's the only thing I'm going to recommend for now, and I'm not going to dive into it, but Roam Book Club, highly recommend it. And
Okay.
Me too.
For yeah, I've adopted that approach, and it has really deepened my thinking about whatever I'm working on, and it makes it really easy to write articles once you have the
Good,
notes
so I'll have a
and everything. So it's
Okay,
it's a
thanks for the tip.
it's a perfect approach if you write papers as well. So I think that's interesting thing to explore. As for taking notes of those papers, yeah, I would almost say the same. Go to Roam Book Club, because the system it explains. But what, and I would need to move on to the next slide
Sure,
with a bit. But
sure, go ahead.
I'm just thinking, do you already have like a process in what's your process like when you
I
read
do,
the
I do
paper?
have, yes, I do have a kind of a process, yes. It's just in short, I just, see if in the abstract, if I really want to move on with that paper. And if I
Mhm.
do, I have certain headings that I'm looking for in that particular paper, also because it depends on where I am in my own writing, right? So if I'm
Mm.
writing the introduction, I will read more introductions, then I will read more discussions. But I
Okay.
take notes in the introduction header, like field or tag, as you wish. And then because I tag them, I try to, that's the process that is taking me longer to adapt into Rome, is to tag what I read, because we need those connections, and that is taking me quite a bit of time to decide
Yeah.
where should I tag, what should I tag, am I tagging too
Mhm.
much, and am I tagging too little? That's the process. I guess I will learn before
Existential
I die.
questions.
Yes, exactly.
Uh, yeah, the only advice I could give you for now, and maybe also for your students, is write that down. But that is essentially what we're trying to do here. Write down the process, because I think you have a process to go through papers, and I know zero context of your job, how you teach, what information you provide, but maybe your students, probably your students, would really welcome something like that.
Yeah. It's
So
true.
I'm going to move on to the next prompts. And this is a little bit of visualization. Again, I want to take 2 minutes and to really think of your wanted outcome. So think of one process in your job that you do regularly, that you do often manually, or you just feel like there's still friction here. It's not easy. I lose my train of thought, whatever. And then think about it just in your mind's eye. What does it look like once you have turned this task into a fixed workflow? So not just what will you achieve, but also how will you feel? Let's get a little bit of feelings in it. So again, I will set a timer for 2 minutes. So anyone wants to share first their dream? How good would your
Okay.
life be? All right, Ed? Yeah.
So I have, I monitor news in my industry. And so I have pretty primitive workflows set up in Outlook. So I subscribe to a bunch of newsletters, industry newsletters, and they get tagged and archived in Outlook. And then because we live in the Microsoft ecosystem, for better or worse, and then every Friday, I have a recurring task to review all the newsletters that came in during the past week. And then I will identify things that are that I think have lasting value, and then I put them in Zotero. But the step that I can't do consistently is actually like process deeply the the content that I'm cataloging, right? So I'm really good at like being a librarian basically, but I'm not good at taking the next step and thinking about how industry news relates to the work that I'm currently doing, or work that we might want to pursue in the future as a company. And if I could find a way to reduce the friction between cataloging and processing, that would be ideal.
And processing being distilling the relevant points,
Right.
and to act then on them, or put them in some other process, at least that it's not stored away, that it's actually acted on at some point, right?
Yeah. Or at least that it gets into Rome so that I can go back and find it easily, and I can draw connections, because at the moment, for the most part, once I catalog stuff in Zotero and occasionally in Evernote, I usually forget about it. Like it's not that it's not discoverable, it is discoverable in Zotero, but I
You
just
just forget.
I just forget. Yeah.
Sounds familiar.
And I
Uh,
feel like I'm lazy because I don't take that next step.
It's not laziness. I mean, as someone who has ADHD and has the attention span of a goldfish, people have told me that way too much. So I don't believe that's the case. I think it's a case of forgetting. And so my first instinct is, again, you should try out Rome Book Club and try to build a Zettelkasten, because that is essentially reading stuff, taking something that resonates with you, think out loud, writing about it. And I can show it in a bit because I've already talked so much about it. And then connect them to other notes, other insights that you had. I think as a intermediate step, have you considered giving yourself some prompts using a template? So for example, I know that the Zettelkasten can feel a little bit overwhelming by free writing in Rome and then distilling your insights and linking them. But you could get started by just having a few prompts. For example, what is the quote that caught my attention? Why? Just ask yourself, why does it resonate with me? You write a few lines. What does it remind me of? And then you can add some tags maybe, or some links. Not going to say how you should structure it, but that's what pops up in my mind when you say, I would like it not just to catalog it and that it's there, but also that it's actually working for me, that it's distilled. And I know we spoke about also maybe turning industry knowledge into in a public graph or something, right? I think that you and I talk about that during the onboarding, I think.
No, not a public graph, no.
But a collaborative graph, I mean, like working with other, or wasn't that?
That would be
Maybe there are
that-
more people that work with industry knowledge, and I just misunderstood.
No, that would be ideal, but I don't think I could convince anyone in my firm or elsewhere to use Rome. That would be a heavy lift.
It's intense, yeah, because you would need to coach people to actually use
right,
it.
right.
But I think for yourself already, having like a template just with a few prompts, just asking yourself a few questions. And I do that with journaling. So I have this running log, which I call interstitial journaling. And I just ask myself what I just did, what I'm going to do, and what I want to achieve. And just by asking myself those questions, I focus my mind on that. And I think you could do something similar to distill knowledge. The question then obviously is, what would be the follow-up process so that you actually revisit those notes that you took, and then use them for something? That I think that would be another process.
Yeah, there's the issue of resurfacing. And for folks who've used the Zotero integration, is it like, how complicated is it? Do you know how like deeply you have to get into actually like quasi coding, or is it relatively straightforward? It's straightforward.
Rita knows, yes.
Sorry, yeah.
Sorry, Rita.
It's,
yeah, I muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
It's easy. It's I thought, I mean, I'm not a coder, so it was easy. If just follow the instructions, there's a few things we need to know, but it's fairly easy, and it's fantastic. Once you get it at work, it's really good. You will have a big smile on your face.
Good.
And anyway, if you need any help, I'm I can help you setting it up if you find any difficulty.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll just post my email for you to know. Welcome.
Great. I appreciate that, Rita.
Yeah, thank you, Rita. That's really kind. I've just put the link to the Zotero Rome.
Yes, that's exactly that one.
By the way, this documentation is the best one I've seen so far about a Rome plugin. Normally, there's almost no documentation.
No, you do. You did. As I say, it's easy. It's easy.
Perfect.
So do not
I should-
hesitate because it's high returns.
Great.
I should check it out, I think. Let's continue. And I hope this discussion and these prompts are helping you clarify what it is that you want to do with Rome. I just want to trigger your thinking and spark the feeling of potential. Because often I get questions from people that say, oh, but this is not possible in Rome. And then I'm like, there are like 3 plugins for it. Don't you worry. So the last question is, what are the steps involved? And some of you, I think, have already started thinking about this because Ed already named a very specific step where he experienced friction. And so this is essentially the exercise. So think of all the little actions you normally do manually to achieve the wanted outcome, and be as specific as possible. So if you say fetch notes, you don't say fetch notes. No, you say fetch notes from page X and drag them to page Y, for example. So be that specific, because that will show you where the friction is, I think. So I will set a timer for 3 minutes this time. Hopefully it's enough. I wonder who has the longest process. Could write down the longest process. So who gives me a number, the number of steps? By the way, I've muted you all, so if you want to speak, you need to unmute yourself.
I'm at 10.
Who gives me more? No one has more. Do you want to share yours, Patrick? Are you willing to?
Well,
read
it's
it out loud?
yeah. It's just because I need to check so many things. Actually, for me, the process is, at the end of each day, I need to create a complete list separated by clients of all the things I've done. So a log. And the thing is, because I'm normally forget to do this throughout the day because I'm just doing the stuff. I sit down each evening or sometimes after 2 or 3 days to remind myself of what I've done. So I create a header, which is the business log. Then I create for each of the companies that I worked on that day another header, so a link to the page. And then I have to check my calendar. I have to check my task list in Rome. I have to check my emails of that day. So the intelligent folder of today. I need to check my Teams chat. I need to check my team viewer logs. I need to check my call logs. So everything I've done. And I do this normally throughout the day. And then I write down the tasks, which are somehow buried there, and create a list for each client. And at the end, I write a total amount of time that I will bill the client to. So the thing is, I tried to do that throughout the day. And sometimes I do that if I have a bit of spare time. And what I did as a trick is, especially because I need to go back to the emails, because most of the tasks are buried there. And then I write down something like 15:05. So that's where I stopped checking. And if I come back at 6 p.m., something like this one, I need to look at all the mails starting from 3 p.m.
Ooh.
Yeah, so that's somehow the checklist I do every day.
Yeah. To be honest, I think these are a few little processes in one. Obviously, you have to do them all, but there are little processes in one. So, for example, you writing down throughout the day as well as you can, like the updates of each client, but then at the end of the day, you still have like a few places to check. And then even
right.
if it's in Rome, you still need to fetch all the relevant content, right? For each
Yeah.
client.
Yeah, that's right.
So I would be thinking those things outside of Rome, some things would be possible. Maybe, you know, with the Google Calendar plugin. I don't know if you want to import all your meetings you had that day, for example. You could something
Mm.
like that. Have you heard of it?
Yeah, I heard of it, but I'm not in the Google ecosystem, so Google is not allowed for
Okay.
most of my clients. So, no,
I haven't said anything. I haven't said anything.
yeah, that's
But for example,
cool.
what would be, as you already use smart blocks, what could be a way is, for example, to have a command and just fetch all the clients you worked on that day, so that you just have to run one command and you see all the blocks that you worked on today, all the stuff that you worked on for clients.
Okay.
So and I think it would be too complex to dive into this now, but if you want, I would like to work on this with you one-on-one, because I've heard more of these use cases and I would like to create a process for the knowledge base about this. So you
Okay, great.
basically run a smart block, you fetch all the blocks that are tagged maybe with client, #client, and
Yeah, that's what I
then
do.
you would split out, for example, if there, I'm just saying something, but automatically create these headings of the clients that you worked on, maybe also based on a hashtag. So you have so you have the client name as a hashtag. And then
Okay, that
underneath
sounds
that hashtag, you would have all the relevant notes of that day just mentioned underneath. So you have a complete, you almost create a dashboard for your end of day. So you would have your checklist of the places where to check. So
mm-hmm.
your calendar, your Teams, call log, whatever. You run through that, you add to the template, but the template is already there because it already fetches everything that you worked on that day. And
Sounds great.
then maybe as a cherry on top, use the calc function in Rome to automatically calculate all the minutes that you or hours that you worked for that client that day.
Okay.
So I'll send you a Calendly link if you want, so we
Okay.
can
Yeah.
dig into it.
Let's check it out. Yeah. Let's go ahead.
Because
Go for it.
you're like person number 5 telling me a similar use case, and I think
Yeah, all the freelancers. It's the typical freelancer paradigm.
and I needed it myself as well. So
Yeah.
that's why I want to invest a little bit of time, but and then document that process for
Yeah.
the
Awesome.
knowledge base.
Awesome. Yeah.
So
Cool.
I'll get back to that. We only have 10 minutes left. I don't know
Oh my God.
if people have, one of you has a very specific question. It can be anything, doesn't have to be about workflows, but if you say, hey, Rezus, I want to create a Kanban board. I got this question yesterday, and the guy was so happy when I told him there's a Kanban board in Rome, and I showed him how it works. It's like, so much. So any questions? And if not, I will just go to the homework, and I will send you the link of these slides so you can revisit. If there are no questions, I will just go to the last one. And again, this was just a first experiment. My ultimate goal is to also create some documentation to guide you more through the thinking process of defining workflow. So I'm happy nobody disconnected and everyone's stuck here. I really hope it was useful. And I want to encourage you to keep thinking about this and to keep writing things down just to gain clarity. And then I see these 7 steps as like the minimum, I think. I use this myself as well when I want to create smart block workflows. So I clearly think about the outcome that I want, so that I have boundaries, because again, I have ADHD. I can think of 10 workflows in one. Then define all the steps in the process to the tiniest detail, like where do I need to fetch them from? Where do I need to send it? Even, for example, I send out the newsletter, how I go to the right ConvertKit page to fetch the URL to that newsletter so I can save it, for example. I have figured out of many services the exact page where I need to be to do one manual action, and then I will put that specific link in the checklist instead of just writing down copy email URL from ConvertKit. No, I have the URL already there, and then I link to the blog reference where I actually need to put it. So it's maybe it's a little bit overboard, but I went from writing the RoamSec newsletter, taking 5 hours every Friday to 1 hour every Friday, just because I have an insane process that helps me to not even think. I just fetch stuff. It's already there. I can just select it, and then I just write what based on the notes that I already took. So that's why I believe in the power of workflows. Refine is crucial, because without refinement, you're going to build stuff that is easier, that breaks more easily. And maybe like the more steps you have, the more complex it becomes, and the less likely you will be able to automate things. Be very clear about the order. Try to batch things as much as possible. So sorry to use you as an example, Patrick, but for example, if you say, it's the end of the day, instead of going to a client one by one, you would say, I'm going to my call log and just record all the calls that I had that day. I go to my email list. I record all the emails that I took the time to answer, and the time to answer them, et cetera, instead of doing the same steps, but then per client.
Yeah, that's
And
what
then I wouldn't have suspected otherwise. And then ask for every step, because a step, what in your mind is a step, could be actually several steps. So for example, to fetch notes about a specific client, maybe there are 3 places you need to look to fetch those notes from the client. So you need to think, is this really one single step, one single action, or is it like 3 actions? And if it's 3 actions, can you turn it into a template? Or could you turn it into a smart block and then actually build the template for the step, and then try to combine the templates as much as possible into one? And for that latter one, I will show you one specific template that I use. Oh. No, I cannot stop the presentation anymore. Now I can. I want to end with this, and this is basically why isn't it working? Somehow my keyboard isn't working anymore. There's always something. So what I mean with combining workflows, and this is for those who use smart blocks. So I have my daily template, but it's not a template per se. It's just a bunch of buttons. Lately, I've become obsessed with buttons in smart blocks, because keeps stuff clean, doesn't create accidental link references, because it doesn't contain any links. But in this case, for example, fetch note from my previous day self, it's in Dutch, so I can show it. So I have this here, and then I want to write a new note, and I just start here. Oh, I just start here. And now I start to write, and the next day when I click that button again, it fetches the note from the previous day. To interstitial journal, I click that, it creates the tag that organizes everything, and then I just add a new entry. And this is what I mean with prompts. So I just ask myself what I've done, what I will do, and what I want to achieve. If I have a new entry. So this is what I mean by combining workflows. Using buttons to trigger a workflow. And why this instead of just running the template? If I don't have a button on my daily notes page to journal, I won't journal. It's out of sight, out of mind. So that's what I use to trigger myself. That's how I actually record what I do. And by using these attributes, which are essentially links, because when I click, you get to see what I've done. So that is basically how I use triggers by combining different workflows. So that was the only thing I wanted to show. Oh yeah, maybe for those who haven't attended Rome Book Club, this is basically the Zettelkasten, which you end up with. So it's a collection of statements that I came to through insights, reading stuff. But behind those statements, you have the notes. So here is the actual source material. I got this from the landing page from our big Obsidian friend, Nick Milo. And then I have my fleeting notes, which is basically free writing. So it's just me thinking about this. But if you can see here, so there's a lot here, but when I expand them, there's even more. So I indent. And why do I indent? Like this, this part is like a paragraph. So this is how I associate sentences, because if I click here, you can see it's nested underneath all the other blocks. So it's associated. That's why I do that. And then the literature notes are nothing more than what's here in my own, written in my own words. And then as you can see, it's a single paragraph. So that is what I do to deeply process the things that I read. May seem like overkill. Maybe it is overkill. I really like it. And I know Patrick has also done Rome Book Club. So
Yeah, awesome.
It's an experience, right? It's like this, for me, this turns Rome into my little thinking corner where I can just safely reason with myself, get myself stuck in my thinking. And then once I'm stuck in my thinking, often in my fleeting notes, I'm like, hey, I don't know enough about this, or I want to say something and I realize I cannot support this. I have no proof for this. I have no notes where I can link to support this. So that triggers more research for me. Although I'm not a researcher, I think this could be really interesting for PhD students, for example. How to Take Smart Notes is the book. Zettelkasten is the system. Highly recommend it. What else? Oh yeah, let me put the link to the slides. And if there are then no more questions, I will close the call in a bit. If there are no more questions, I want to thank you all. And I'm so happy there were no technical issues, or little. So thank you for attending. Thank you for sharing, and hope to see you all soon. Bye all.
See you.